What's up, everybody? Welcome to a bonus episode of Talon Talk. My name is Cloudy, and today we have a one-of-a-kind episode for all of you. We are not actually discussing Talon Community today. Instead, we have a few members from one of the top Overwatch teams on PS4. Their name is Fissure. Fissure currently plays in the GM tier of the Culture Gaming League, and they also play in Tier 4 of Oracle. They've got some of the top players on PS4 currently, and are definitely going to be some of the guys you want to hear from here. So about 6 or 7 of the players were on Velocity, who won the Grandmasters tier CGL in 2018. So we have some top tier talent here, and they also compete in some of the highest levels of Overwatch tournaments on PS4. So it is definitely a treat to be here with you guys. So that being said, let's introduce some of you guys here. We'll start with the manager. His name is Acid. How are you doing, man?
Doing wonderful. I'm happy to be here.
Acid has coached or managed, whatever you want to call it. He's been around like 7 or 8 of Grandmaster tier teams, won a ton of tournaments, coached in some of the top tiers around multiple leagues, and is definitely a great mastermind behind the bench for a lot of teams here. So definitely going to be great to pick your brain a little bit. Let's introduce some of the players here. We're going to start with some of the support players because obviously those are the most important players. We will start with Dragon Envy, one of the main support players. How you doing?
Doing good. What about you?
Fantastic. Would not rather be anywhere else.
Perfect.
Also with us today we have Lolly, one of their main tank players. How you doing?
Doing pretty good.
We also have an off support player called Snake17334. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great, man. This is pretty fun.
And also one of their newer DPS, his name's Phantom. How you doing?
I'm doing good today.
So I want to start off by talking a little bit about the history of your team a little bit, and I'll throw this over to Acid to give us a little background on your team, maybe tell us where you guys started at, how you ended up here, and tell us about Fissure.
Alright, so the team Fissure originally started in the summer of 2018 after the league known as Space Esports ended. I was in talks with several captains of top-tier GM teams known as Nightless, Dedicated, and Rewind, and I talked to them about potentially forming a super team.
Mm-hmm.
And so in the end, all 3 teams disbanded to form Fissure.
Mm-hmm.
And after that, we just slowly picked up speed and rose to the top as the best team of 2018. And now going into 2019, or ending 2019, going into 2020, we have a revamped roster, which is basically Fissure 2.0. But I think we can be just as good as the original.
Awesome. So you said you compete in some leagues and some tournaments and whatnot. Obviously you guys are looking to break back into that like top tier of play and whatnot. As I said, you guys have a few players from a team called Velocity that played in CGL. Why don't you tell me a little bit about that? What was that team about, and how'd you end up here?
So Velocity started roughly maybe like 20 to 30 days after the disbanding of Fissure.
Mm-hmm.
A girl known as Omni Queen messaged me under an org known as Velocity, asking if I could help her like make a roster for CGL. At
Mm-hmm.
this point, I'd retired from like everything Overwatch, and was like, I don't really have anything going on. I might as well,
Mm-hmm.
look into this. And so we hit up this guy known as Mad Max, who is a really, really good off-tank player and is one of the smartest people in the entire community.
Mm-hmm.
So with us 3 together, we just built Velocity ranks up into CGL, and it turns out we were easily the best team in the league.
Awesome.
As time went on, nobody could really touch us when it came to GOATS comp, just because all of us knew, like, we all just had pre-made synergy from other teams, and we won it all together.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely to win the top tier CGL, that's definitely a huge accomplishment there. So that's got to be something there. So let's shift a little bit away from the team, and I want to go through each member here. And I want to hear a little bit about your guys' background. We'll start with Snake. Just everybody can tell me a little bit about their background, maybe where you started playing Overwatch, what roles you play on, what heroes you play on, stuff like that. Just give me a little bit of a basic description of where you come from.
I started playing Overwatch pretty early in the game, like right before Season 1 actually came out. But I never really got into it. I was more a kid. I've been playing, since then. Season 2, I really started to get into it, and then Season 3 was when I actually climbed into GM and top 500. And then I went through a little phase of just not really caring about the game and just having fun. Then having fun wasn't fun anymore, so I decided to play in teams and higher ranks.
And now you're here.
Now I'm here.
Awesome.
Very many teams.
Awesome. And so, like, what role do you focus on? Obviously, I said off support in the introduction. That's your role? What heroes maybe? What do you focus on?
I've been a DPS player for most of my career, but now I play more Ana Lucio, Moira. Just pretty much the whole support lineup except Mercy.
Awesome. Well, let's shift to another support player here. Your name is Dragon. Why don't you tell me a little bit about your background?
Wait, so I've also been one of the original players. Started around Season 1. I was mostly a quick play warrior at that time, spending most of my time just goofing around, playing with friends in quick play, more or less. And then I was too intimidated to play comp because I thought I just wasn't good enough. Because I only dropped 15 hours into comp as a Hanzo main.
Big oof.
Yeah, it was a meme. Yeah, but once I started messing around with the heroes, I started realizing, hey, I really like Mercy, because I couldn't aim, I couldn't play the game, but I just really liked her kit because she brought so much to the table. So I realized, as a support player, you're like the foundation of the team. As long as you can supply good heals, you can keep your team up to make plays.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, from there, once I peaked at Season 3, that's when people started taking an interest in me for teams. Started asking me to join a variety of teams, actually. So I'm pretty sure, because I have the list of teams I've played for.
Good.
I've played on Dedicated Blue, Discrepancy, Exalted Green, Fissure, Fracture, Saucy Squad, Portland Plague, and Velocity.
So you've been all over the map here. So
Yeah,
you've definitely got a ton of experience in this tier.
Correct. Yeah, I have a few tournament wins under my belt as well.
Awesome.
I've usually been the original, one of the original members on the rosters for most of those teams.
Awesome. That's.
Then I end up stop playing because I'll get burned out. Just get burned out on the game, or I'll just get caught up at school, so I have to back out of the team. And I become a substitute.
Yeah, definitely that happens to all of us in all tiers for sure.
Yeah, the struggle's real. I'll drop out of college and spend all my time in console Overwatch,
Yeah, for sure.
Fun fact about Dragon, I'm not sure if he even knows this, but Dragon is the most dedicated, or decorated, support player on on both consoles. Out of every support player across both platforms, not only does he have the most tournament wins, but he also has the most league wins.
Wow.
Right.
That's
I've been
awesome.
everywhere.
That's awesome.
I constantly, I'm constantly getting on these good teams due to Acid. He's always his first choice for support.
That's awesome, and it's great to have you here, man. Thank you for talking with us today. Let's look at the DPS player we have with us today. Phantom, I understand you're a little bit newer to the team, so maybe you don't have the Fissure background, but why don't you tell me a little bit about your personal background to the game and where you started?
Well, I mostly started playing around once Overwatch got released on PS4. I just hooked up on the game. I mained Genji for a while because I came from Dishonored of all games, so I
Wow.
found Genji awesome. And it just took me a while to actually grind out the game and care and stuff.
Mhm.
So I really only started being in team scene around like season 11, season 12, back when I still one-tricked Hanzo.
A lot of one-trick Hanzos here, huh?
He was just really easy to climb with.
Yeah.
And I haven't been on many teams, only about 4 now.
Mhm.
2 were master teams, so I'm not really trying to flex to anyone here, but
No, that's fine. That's fine.
It's pretty impressive, man. I'm jealous.
yeah, we won master tournaments, bro. Like, we're just some of the best online.
No, it's still great to have you here, and I'm looking forward to picking your brain a little bit here. And the last player we have with us today is the tank player, and his name is Lolly. And why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself?
I started around season 1. I didn't really play too much because at the time I was really into Siege.
Mm-hmm.
I started playing around season 3, around the middle of it, and I was a support player.
Mm-hmm.
I eventually got bored and picked up DPS and tank from season 5 and 6, and then I kind of got bored of the game again, so I
Mhm.
kind of took a break for about a year, all the way until season 12 I came back, and I just kind of messed around. Not really doing much, just playing comp, just having fun.
Yeah.
And then I'd say around the end of season 16 was when I actually got interested in joining a team,
Mm-hmm.
and I was on Illusions for a little while.
Okay.
I guess I was their flex tank. I don't know, I was kind of like started for the time, and then ended up leaving there, and now I'm here on Fissure.
Awesome.
It's not.
Yeah, it's funny because you kind of have like a similar background to myself. Obviously, I'm not a Grandmasters player or anywhere near your guys' tier, but like I had the same kind of background. I started in season 1. I played like season 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I literally just took like a year-long break and came back in like season 15 or 16, and that's kind of where I'm at now. So
A lot has changed.
yeah, yeah, it was definitely like coming back. It was like a whole new world. So but it was a lot of fun. Coming back into like almost a brand new game compared to like what I remembered it being. So yeah, I totally understand that. But it definitely seems like all you guys have kind of a similar background where you guys all started playing like in season 1, season 2, but I mean, it definitely speaks to the amount of dedication you have to the game.
Yeah, that's like where a lot of the good players came from too. Is just those earlier seasons,
Yeah, and
and then like the dedicated ones just like stuck around.
I think that speaks a lot to being able to be flexible with the way the game changes. Obviously, it's a completely different game than what it was in season 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and to be able to remain at a top tier Grandmaster tier since early on in the game, I think that speaks a lot to the amount of flexibility you guys have, and I think that's definitely a huge trait of somebody that plays at that tier, is being able to change depending on how the game changes, and that's kind of one of the things we're all susceptible to, is if Blizzard decides to change something about Overwatch, we have to change with it. So we don't have much room for error there. So we all have to adapt to whatever changes and balances and buffs and nerfs and everything across the board there. So I think it definitely speaks to that as well. So it's good to hear a little bit about your guys' background. I want to get into some of these questions here, though. And I'm going to start with Acid. I want to start from the managerial side here. You're obviously somebody that has managed at a lot of these top tier teams. You have a ton of experience managing top tier competition. And I just want to hear what it's like managing at that level, and also what makes it different at the top level than maybe if you're managing a team that's gold, plat, low diamond, like that area. What's some of the differences, and what is it like?
the key differences definitely game sense and just overall talent.
Mm-hmm.
Because whatever like people say, like no matter what people think or what they may genuinely like believe or preach, there is a difference between GM and every other elo in the game,
Mm-hmm.
just from not even mechanical skill but game sense wise. So when you're playing or when you're coaching or managing these players of the highest tier, like you're dealing with like the best in the game.
Mm-hmm.
So you also have to deal with a lot of egos. Like almost every player that I've managed or coached had an ego of some sort,
Yeah, of
or
course. Mm-hmm.
overconfidence. But when you're looking at like the lower tiers, because I also participate in like all SR leagues with my friends,
Mm-hmm.
so I can kind of mix in my Fissure players with like diamonds, golds, plats, and bronzes, and like just having those lower elo players get that opportunity to play with my players, it shows like a big difference in just like the skill, and it also like helps those lower players improve and realize that, wow, okay, maybe I'm not perfect, so these are the guys that are the best in the game. Maybe I need to learn from them.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So, as you already said a little bit, I mean, you said it's more about game sense in that top tier. Do you feel
Oh, for
like
sure.
it's like what's the breakdown? Like maybe it's 60-40, 80-20, whatever it is, between game sense and actual mechanical skill when you're playing at that level.
Depends on the player.
Yeah.
Like if a player has godlike mechanical ability, he can be dumb as rocks. But but I think the smarter you are in this game, the longer you can play for. Like a mechanical one trick isn't gonna last for 20 seasons.
Yeah.
Whereas just an incredibly smart player with like maybe like minimal or like average mechanical skills will last forever.
Awesome.
So
I think a big part of it too is just like not getting upset too over a loss, like just not
Yeah.
being able to not get tilted.
Yeah, that was one of my other questions is like obviously like you said there's a lot of egos and I think we've all seen that. I mean, it happens at all tiers to be honest. Like even obviously so in Talon community we have a lot of lower tier players. We started as an academy league and we're kind of branching out now, but even at lower tiers you have a lot of players with big egos and so is it does the personality factor into when you're picking players for your teams and how much does that factor in? I mean, if they have amazing skills and they have amazing game sense, how much of that personality is factoring into if you choose them for your team?
it mainly depends on their role, or if I have people on the team that like that person or I know will fit well with them. Like if you're a very good player but
Mhm.
you're a douchebag, I'm not gonna pick you up. It's like I'd
Yeah.
rather pick up. Like I can always find someone just as good as you that's willing to listen.
You
Or
can still have
not.
that same problem though. Like if you get two really good tank problems or two really good tanks, like you'll have the problem where they don't synergize at all.
Yeah.
That's like it's
Yeah.
really hard for them to make space or make plays.
I like to have this rule. It's not really a rule that I like enforce often unless I really need to, but I do not like my players to have egos. If your ego starts dripping into the team and it starts messing with the team synergy or we start losing before it, I will get on you about it. If you don't fix it, you're gone. It's like I don't have patience for that. Either you listen or you can find another team.
Yeah. And while we're on the good. What are you gonna say?
At me next time, Acid.
Okay.
Yeah.
No.
That's why Man Bear subbed. 'Cause he won't stop fucking with you.
One of the other things though at that level, like obviously at my level, I see a lot of players get tilted very easily and get very negative very easily. And personally, so in Talon we have best of 5 matches and it's I see a lot of players get tilted even just after losing the first match. Is that something that also progresses on in that tier, or do you see a little bit?
It's in every tier.
Yeah, yeah.
Like the big thing is you gotta like just take a deep breath and just think about the solution. Like how can we fix this? How can we change our comps?
Mhm.
It's like can I be the one to make the switch that will actually turn the team fight? You know.
Yeah, yeah, and it's definitely a lot about communication, right?
Every team will tilt at some point, but the more you tilt, the more likely it is that you will lose and your team will slowly start to die. If you're getting tilted over scrims or you're getting tilted after, one or two
Right.
maps of a game, your team will not last much
Right,
longer.
if one person gets tilted, it eventually trickles to the rest of the team. The whole team's tilted, and it's like you're not gonna win anything.
Well, let's
It's
focus on that real
very
quick. Let's focus on that because, like, as a manager, I don't know if you obviously like you're not maybe in the comms when it's happening, but you obviously have captains to deal with that. Like, what is something that you try to do? Let's say during that moment, let's say your team is getting tilted. How do you deal with that, and how do you get your team back on track in those situations?
well, generally, it mostly depends on like what the tilt is coming from. If someone's like playing bad and they're tilting because of it, we either sub them out or we like take a mid map break or we put them on something else.
Mm-hmm.
But if someone's getting mad about their teammate, we look at who's the problem. Like maybe okay, if he's tilting over his teammate, is it just him placing the blame, or is his teammate actually making the mistakes?
Mm-hmm.
And so if he's just placing the blame, he'll most likely be taken out. But if his teammate is making mistakes, we'll address those mistakes, either get them fixed, or we'll find someone who doesn't make those mistakes or synergizes with that other player better. It's
Mm-hmm.
entirely like dependent on the situation.
Gotcha. Yeah, and that obviously will happen. Like everybody has off days, so it's it's obviously like if you're just having an off day, sometimes that happens. So sometimes subbing out is the best thing to do, and obviously every situation is different there. So there's not one answer for that question for sure. Let's shift a little bit from the managerial side and let's shift to the player side. I want to go around here. We obviously have a player from each role here, and we have 2 support players here. So I want to go through each role, and I want to talk about how different it is, obviously playing at your top tier, but also what the difference is and how lower tiers can improve, like in gold, plat, and in that level. In that role, what are some of I know I've talked to some people and they have like this one tip that they always like to focus on, or one big thing that's like that makes a huge difference between like plat players and masters players, and I kind of want to hear what all of your opinions are on all that, and maybe some of your tips there. So let's start with tank. So that's obviously going to bring us to Lolly. And then obviously if anybody else wants to jump in, say something, feel free to cut me off. I don't mind. Just jump in if you have anything to say here. But let's start with tank. So it could be main tank, off tank. I don't care where we go with this, but what's some general tips about what kind of advice would you offer to, let's say, a plat player that is aspiring to climb through the ranks there? What's something you're gonna tell them?
Let's see. One of the things I would really focus on is, if you're a main tank, definitely shield management, but I personally like to pay attention to a lot to cooldown management.
Mm-hmm.
Like Zarya's a really strong hero, but if you catch her with other bubble, she can easily be punished for overextending or anything.
Mm-hmm.
I like to pay attention to cooldowns a lot and just overall positioning,
Mm-hmm.
rather than
And
rather than like, shit, I forgot what I was gonna say.
it happens.
But yeah, pretty much I just like to pay attention mainly to just positioning, about either where, like, if I'm on off tank, if I'm running Rein Zarya, I like to pay attention a lot to where my Reinhardt is and what his shield health is. And then usually by just whatever cooldown, whatever my abilities are on cooldown or what the cooldown is, I'll go from there.
Gotcha. Yeah, and good.
I
It's
think-
also oh,
I think with
Alright,
with
take
Zarya
player.
especially, there's a huge emphasis on not dying. You can't die on Zarya or you lose charge. It's like something that's very important. You have to play really smart.
Mhm.
Yeah, like you also can't like be using your ally bubbles just to burn them for a charge. You want to use them to save your teammates, not just get like that extra like 40 charge.
Yeah.
And as a tank player myself, I think one really important thing is to know when you take fights. If you're down 2 people, you shouldn't just run in. You want to make sure every fight you take is winnable or you're fighting for something.
Mhm.
You don't want to, because tanks have the highest health pool in the game. So if you're just going in and feeding, you're giving the enemy team the maximum amount of ult charge and that they can possibly get.
So you also gotta like know too, like when you do have like a full 6, like when to be aggressive, when should we push up? I see that like maybe they're making take their risks backing up, so let's walk forward. Let's
Mhm.
take that space from them.
As well as communicating your abilities, like just managing your abilities and telling your teammates like when and how you're managing them is just as important. Like
Right.
if I can have perfect bubble management, but that doesn't matter if my Reinhardt doesn't know I have my bubble ready.
Mhm.
Or I can have like perfect halt management, but my hog doesn't know when I'm halting, so we can't hook combo.
Yeah.
It's like you have to be vocal when you're playing tank. Like you can't be silent, or you're not helping your team.
Yeah.
It's
Hey,
kind of like
just-
it's like kind of it's like kind of running when we used to run dive. It's like dive was so like important for the communications. Like if you didn't have communication, you couldn't dive.
Mhm.
And-
Winston was calling out his targets, and the diva followed.
And while we're kind of on that topic of like tank communication and whatnot, let's look at shot calling, and this might go a little bit off topic here, or it might branch out a couple different ways. But on your team maybe, or at your level, do you see tanks being the main shot caller, or do you usually put that
Yes.
off on a different
Main
role?
tank and
Main
off
tank.
support like a Lucio, because
Mhm.
it's all like, hey, I have speed, let's engage.
In this
Snake.
meta, it's very difficult to have one shot caller because there's a lot of different things you have to see. Like it's not so straightforward as you have one person saying everything like it is with like a dive comp. You could have a Winston is the only one deciding targets.
Mhm.
Fights are a lot more complicated now. Like they're more spread out and
Mhm.
a lot more. I mean, some people get split. A lot of things happen in a fight, so you usually have 2 people that are calling different types of things, and everyone has to contribute their abilities and what they're shooting at and everything. I mean, you can't just have one person talking. You usually have the whole team communicating a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, and like so when you're so we could focus on Lolly here if you want. As far as shot calling goes, what are some things you focus on in that perspective? Because that can be its own art almost, right?
I think we could use Snake as the shot caller rep more than Wally is also a little bit newer. I think he's been on the team for about a week and a half.
Okay,
Yeah,
gotcha.
But
think
he hasn't.
So
Go ahead, Snake.
yeah, we have like 3 main tanks. We have like Cyber Ninja. We have him. Vesma sometimes tanks. Manbear tanks sometimes. Like it's very like I'm usually the most consistent shot caller out of everybody.
Wasn't Max shot call a lot too?
It's different. Max doesn't shot call as much as he does. Like,
He's a target caller.
Oh
Yeah.
right.
So what's the difference between that? What do you mean by that?
Shot calling isn't limited to to like calling out heroes, as to where target calling is like Sigma, 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 or like Mercy, Mercy, Mercy. Just picking a target and then getting everyone to focus that target.
Gotcha.
And where shot calling is like everything. Like it's like a combination of like target calling, like when
yeah,
we're putting in, like what abilities we're gonna use, what comps we're gonna run. It's like target calling wouldn't be like, hey, someone swap, whereas shot calling would be.
Yeah.
Or like when to go in, when to take fights, and all of that.
I feel like this is especially relevant when you're playing Lucio, since you dictate so much of how the fight goes. You kind of decide when your
Right,
team
like
goes in,
you feel
out.
like hey, let's move up here. You speed boost.
Let's
Maybe
back
like
up.
hey, we might lose this fight. Let's back out with speed boost.
Yeah.
Yeah. That definitely makes a lot of sense there.
That's
Like,
why
I could
it's
see-
usually the off support doing a lot of that.
Gotcha.
But it
even
changes. I'll call much less when I'm on Ana or Moira. I still call, but like it's more target calling when I'm on. For example, like I'll call who I anti, who I select. And
Right.
on Lucio, it's mostly shot calling. I guess I do more of the main tank's job when I'm on Lucio.
Right, that's why I feel like the main shot callers are the main tank and the off support. Because say, like, for Zen example, like, you'd be calling out your Discord, say, hey, I Discord the Mercy, everybody focus the Mercy.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
Yeah, but then Zen becomes the target caller. That's why it kind of alternates. It's not one is doing the main shot call. It kind of depends on the role.
Gotcha.
It's all like kit dependent, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess it depends on what comp you're running and whatnot there, but yeah, it's definitely cool to hear how you guys handle it there. So let's shift to the DPS role then. What kind of tips would you give to some plat players that are looking to climb? We'll start with Phantom here, since you're the designated DPS guy here. What would be some of your tips? I guess you could. There's so many DPS players and DPS heroes, so maybe if you want to focus on a couple, you could do that, or you could do this however you want.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I can play a lot of different DPS, but that's just because of my playtime. Like, I have over 4,500 hours in this game, so like I've got a lot of fucking time.
Wow.
I got too much.
4,000 hours of Mercy, by the way.
Yeah.
Mercy's obviously a DPS, so.
And now she is. I get all the time with this low.
Nothing is scarier than a glocking Mercy.
Those Mercy criticals, 4-shot a Tracer. But to me, like, it really just comes with playtime and just getting to know your sensitivity. Because I'm very mechanic based, but I'm still smart, but I rely on my mechanics a lot. Which I know Acid hates me for. So it's just playtime, knowing your sensitivity.
You mentioned there about sensitivity. I know some players that like preach by having like this really high sensitivity and just getting used to it. And, obviously there's other players that say just play what you're comfortable with and you'll be fine. Where do you kind of fall in that?
I say use the fastest that you can control reliably.
It's like same for tracking. Like, as long as you can smoothly track, you should be fine.
It depends a lot on your role. I think it's very dependent on, like, if you're playing main tank, there's no reason not to have max sensitivity. I mean, you're just the way that you're playing. If you're a main tank player, if you're a flex player, then you're going to need something that can be in the middle between everything. You can't have, super high, or you could have different sensitivities for every hero. But what I find with that is that, like, when you're playing projectile heroes, it's a lot harder to have different sensitivities. Like, if you're playing McCree and Soldier, you can have a lower sense on Soldier and a higher sense on McCree, but it's kind of the same because the projectiles move the same. It's hit scan. So it's a lot easier to, swap between those versus swapping between, having 100 cents on Ara and having a 50 cents on Soldier. It doesn't really work like that. It's a lot harder to swap between them. So if you're like a super flex, like with projectiles and everything, you have to choose a sense that works with kind of everybody. And yeah, that takes time. But I learned. I mean, I play on exponential ramp. I have really high sensitivity and really high aim speed, which makes it like a lot easier to control and track even on a high sensitivity. But everybody has their own style. I mean, it's very subjective. You don't.
See, yeah, if I use high sensitivity, it just feels super awkward. Like, I prefer running like 50-50. Like, that's my comfort zone.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody's gonna mention this because all of our DPS are one tricks, but I think for comp, when you're looking to climb reliably or just become like a better overall player, you don't want to commit to one hero unless you are the absolute best or one of the best at that
Call
hero.
code. Wait.
You want to have flexibility, because every hero is not going to be good in every situation, no matter who it is. Like every
Besides
hero.
Hanzo.
Hanzo sucked. Yeah. How about you?
Doomfist. Doomfist.
Oh, boy.
Doomfist wasn't good until Double Shield.
And then things
Well,
like
after they nerfed him.
Widowmaker was kind of good everywhere for like 90% of the game existing. So
Hanzo been good since Nam. You just gotta play him right.
Well, yeah, that what you're saying definitely speaks to what I kind of talked about at the beginning here, where if you're gonna one trick a hero and all of a sudden the meta shifts because there's a bunch of nerfs and
Then
now
you're gonna fall.
exactly.
But it's kind of like the diva mains. It's like there's no place for diva right now. It's like
Yep.
she'll just end up feeding or she can't do anything.
Yeah.
Rest in peace, Javi.
Yeah, right.
And that's kind of what you're saying is if you're gonna one trick a hero, if the meta shifts against it, you're gonna be screwed, and there's not much you can do unless you learn other heroes. But obviously this.
You wanna? Yeah.
Go
ahead. Finish.
I was just saying, like, there's some heroes that you can carry over what you know to other heroes. Like, depending on what hero you play, some of your cooldown management can be used in the same way as other heroes. So maybe you get a little leeway there, but you definitely want to try to, especially as a DPS player, have some kind of flexibility there. But go ahead, what are you going to say?
So you also, it's very important to know your maps and know your counters and what counters your counters.
Mm-hmm.
So Pharah isn't Pharah, for example, I'm sure Snake can back me up on this. Pharah isn't good in like low ceiling maps that don't have much way for like her to get like, you know, around corners or like ability to like get above the enemy team. Like Horizon Lunar Colony, because it's an indoor map with, you know, not much to fly around. It makes it a lot easier for like hit scans or like whatever to like have that opportunity to kill you. But if they're running double hit scan, that means you can go like maybe like a higher damage hero, like you can go like Reaper or, you know, like Doom or something, to where those hit scans can't put in that damage quick.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense there, and it's definitely interesting to see. Because a lot of times, especially in lower tiers, I'd say it's a lot harder to play that rock paper scissors game where like what counters what, and we'll just swap to whatever counters them, and we'll be good. Because a lot of times, like at a lower tier, if they have an amazing diva player, even though diva's not meta, if their diva player is just so much better than you, they're obviously going to have the advantage there.
See, actually, I still feel like in lower elo, you shouldn't focus too much on the meta. You should focus on mostly what you can play well.
Yeah. And that's kind of what I was getting at there, is like, even if they're an amazing, they might not, they could be an amazing player even though it's not elo, or I mean, not meta, they will still have an advantage.
Right, because like a good diva can still carry if the diva knows what she's doing and isn't feeding.
But once you get up to where you guys are at, that obviously shifts a little bit because everybody's at that level. Like, everybody's amazing. So once you get to that level, then just because you're an amazing diva, it doesn't mean shit, you know?
Right, once you get to high level, people will start punishing you for the smallest mistakes.
Yeah.
A good example of this is, say, like, I think Goats is always, you know, just a good example. But say a plat team hard commits to Goats, right? They're still not going to beat a team of GM players all playing DPS. Like a 6 DPS GM team will slaughter a plat Goats team just because they're better players. Like, they don't have to commit to that meta just because of the raw skill difference.
Yeah, so it's definitely kind of it's all around the board almost, depending on what level you play at. And I hear a lot about like that kind of, like I said, rock paper scissors, where like one thing's going to counter another thing, but what counters that thing, and we're all just going to switch whatever counters that thing. Like, you kind of play that game a lot, and I feel, is that something you guys see a lot at your level? Like, okay, if they're going to run this hero, we're just going to run this hero and counter them. Is that what?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mostly around the DPSs.
Yeah, it's pretty much almost always.
Yeah.
Yeah, but say for lower elo, you can have like a Pharah, like a plat Pharah. She's not really hitting anything. You guys don't have any DPS on or you don't have any hit scans on your team. It's like, as long as you're killing their tanks, you should be fine. You'll have the like you just keep on walking forward, and the Pharah's not gonna be a problem.
Yeah.
Counterplaying this game can be pretty deep though. Like, you could counter heroes indirectly. Like, for example, you don't actually have to counter the pharmacy to counter the whole team. You kind of run through their
Right,
tanks
just
and
run
ignore
through the
pharmacy.
tanks. Yeah.
Yeah, there's
Mhm.
many different ways to counter different types of comps.
Gotcha. Yeah.
It's not very straightforward.
That
You
could.
want to attack the weak point.
Yeah.
It's like, say the Ryan's like pushed a little bit too far up, like that's when you be aggressive on that Reinhardt because the
Yeah.
team's not with him.
Because if you, I mentioned this earlier because we actually, we made that mistake yesterday, and I actually pointed it out that what we're gonna do is, we're not gonna hard commit just because one person's playing well. We're not gonna we're not gonna hurt our team just to, break even with them.
Yeah.
For example, we ran Hammond instead of Meta because their Widowmaker was really good. Where what we should have done was hard commit to Meta and then stuck one of our DPS to take care of their Widow, so that instead of them having both of their tanks and us just having one tank, it could be our two tanks versus their two tanks, and then both DPSs are focusing on each other. And if ours wins, then that fight is almost guaranteed for us. But if we don't have that second tank, it doesn't matter if that Widow is being distracted.
Mhm.
This is tank meta. If they have more tanks than us, then we are not going to win a battle where we have half of the amount of tanks they do.
Mhm. Yeah, that makes sense for sure. Let's look at the support role then, and cover this one a little bit. I'm sure there's a lot of different ways we can go with this. Obviously, main support, off support, and whatnot. Whoever wants to take it here, whether that be Dragon or Snake, you guys
I
can.
can.
Okay, let's talk. So I hear you're one of the best Mercies on PS4. So let's talk about that a little bit. I won't tell you who
Alright.
told me that, but let's talk about what you do differently on Mercy that kind of sets you apart, maybe.
Okay, the biggest thing about Mercy is positioning and awareness. Like, I actually just recently started some coaching and doing some VOD reviews for other Mercy mains. And once I look over like this lower level play of like Mercies, like I see they end up tunnel visioning on whatever they're healing.
Mm-hmm.
As for Mercy, as soon as you lock on a target with your beam, you want to be spinning around. You want to be looking for a next target. You want to be looking for an escape route in case you get pressured.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it really comes down to that awareness. It's like you got to know what's going on around you at all times.
Mm-hmm.
And as main support, you also got to be keeping tabs of ultimates. Like say, hey, I haven't seen their McCree ult, I haven't seen their Fair ult in a while. Keep an eye out for that. Like, get on your mic, say, hey, the Fair, look, keep an eye out for the Fair. She has ult.
Mm-hmm. When we're looking at support here, and a lot of times, like, support is almost the backbone of the team. Where do you think, at what part of your team, so whether that be support, DPS, or tank, we're going to shift away a little bit, but at what part of the team would you rather have your strongest player? Would you rather have on support, DPS, or tank? I guess Acid, you can answer this one if you want.
I'd say main tank.
Yeah.
Our best player is on DPS at the moment, but I do think main tank or off tank is the most important.
If you have a good front line, you can have average DPS and you still walk forward.
Our best player is probably Meraki.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, thank you.
Shut up.
Man, I'm slept on. Whatever.
But no,
Yeah, I don't get enough credit.
Snake.
I killed myself yesterday, falling off the map. Like, I deserve some love.
It happens sometimes.
I don't get
But no, Snake, why don't you tell me a little bit about your support and what kind of advice you would give?
You just need to learn how to stay alive. I mean, staying alive is the most important thing on support more than anything at all. You just really, really have to stay alive. I think that's the only one thing that's universal for every single support. You can't die. I mean, that's
Yeah, like the
Flashback
thing
Sally
is-
Shane.
Right, the thing is, like, if you're like Mercy or the main support and you die first, like, team fight's a guaranteed loss. There's no
Yeah.
like hope to bring you back.
So it's
If
all
they
about
have
positioning.
Lucios,
Very.
If you don't have a Lucio and they do dead and they have a Lucio, they're just gonna speed boost onto you, and you'll have no way to disengage, and you'll have like nowhere to go. You'll have
Right,
such a huge
'cause
disadvantage.
Legion.
Once you hit the higher elo,
You
like
stop?
Lucios will know how to speed boost. Like once you, it was like looking at like a
Fun
Lucio from
fact.
plat, they just stay on heals.
Yeah.
Fun fact, Snake killed himself 4 times on Weijing in a
I
tournament
killed
game.
myself twice because my controller didn't work and I couldn't jump over the gap.
Butterfingers.
And then the other 2 times I got booted off the map by a hand. Alright.
Understandable.
He's just better than you.
We'll just ignore me farming Slayer on Baptiste.
Also, another thing I want to focus on too, though, is target prioritization at supports as well. You gotta know who to like. If everybody's critical, you gotta know who to start healing first. You heal your DPS, you heal your tanks, or you heal like maybe your other support first. You know, it's like say your Ryan's like shields up. You know, it's full. It's still like a full shield. You focus on your DPS, you focus on your squishies first. Then you focus on your tanks. It's like you constantly want to rotate around. You don't want to focus like all your heals on one target if they're all crit. You want to be constantly switching.
Is that kind of the prioritization that you go through?
Right. It's like you have to be able to be a quick thinker on Mercy.
Mm. And so this might be like a time sensitive thing, but currently in this meta, where do you think the best support is at?
Moira,
Lucio.
Mercy is,
and Moira.
I would choose a Moira and Ana over Mercy any day.
Yeah.
Moira, Lucio, Ana.
Because the problem with Mercy is she doesn't output enough heals right now.
The
it's
worst
like, there's so much
support right
damage
now
going
is
on.
Zen.
Yeah.
Right, because Zen can't do anything against double shields, for example, or he gets pressured by a Doomfist and he can't do anything. He just can't play the game.
Yeah, and Zen is super squishy too, so that never
The
happens.
back buff definitely did a lot, but I don't know if it's gonna like spring him into meta.
They should give Zen 400 HP.
That's how you fix it.
Just make him a tank.
Pro balance is here, guys. That's all it's
Let's see you come into my spawn now, Tracer.
All right.
Awesome. Well, while we're on this topic, anybody have anything they would want to say or any advice they'd want to give to like a lower tier player that is looking to climb? Anything. Could be about anything at all.
Just commit to something. Commit to it. Not even necessarily a role. It's even deeper than that. It's like commit to a play style. You need to know whether you want to be very intellectual or very mechanical and just like practice those things. Find a role. Either like, do you want to play hit scan or do you want to play projectile? Those are like two categories.
Like backing that up too, it's like another thing I see in this low elo is like people are just too passive. Like they just want to sit at the choke. They don't want to walk forward. Like tank or DPS.
The wrong people are passive.
Yeah, like shit, we spawn camp.
Support's over aggressive.
Yeah.
Right, you gotta be able to be aggressive and commit.
Gotcha.
You gotta be able to punish like bad positioning too.
My advice for one is communication. If you don't talk, then you have no reason to blame anyone else. Talk even if you lose and you're talking, you're still doing your job. So you may have lost the game.
You're still getting that fat avoid.
Even grandmaster players lose games. So just because you're losing doesn't mean you're not improving or you're not, learning.
Because we still even get those GM games where like nobody talks.
And we usually lose those. But yeah, communication is key. Try to be if there's not a leader on your team or in your game, try to take that role. Because if one team has a leader and the other doesn't, the team with the leader will win.
Yeah, just say like one person has a mic and everybody else is just in chat. Like just be the one that's just call shots. Just say, hey, there's a flanker. Hey, like the McCree's by himself.
Yeah.
Like just simple small things like that can really make a difference.
Awesome.
And
Because it makes everybody turn in that direction.
hey, Dragon, shut up.
All right, I hate you.
But also, it's about committing. If you're not born with that godlike grandmaster mechanical skill, then you have to find some way to make up for it. You have to commit to the game. If you don't know everything about your hero, then you're not as good as you could be. Even I don't know. I'm a one trick, and even I don't know everything about my hero. Like, if you were to ask me, like, some crazy math question about, like, how much damage would Orisa take from this with her Fortify while it's being damage boosted, I wouldn't know. But it's all about learning your hero and knowing is this hero good here? Could I play something else? It's always just trying to maximize your value and also maximizing your potential.
Mm-hmm.
Because you don't have to be born with, the Korean mechanical ability to be really good at the game. Like
Mhm.
if you have good game sense, good mechanical ability, or good flexibility, you can be a GM player
See, that's what I
if
like
you
about-
commit to the grind.
See, like you don't need to be like mechanically good to be good at the game. You just have to know the game.
Yeah, and that's
Yeah.
one of the things is like one of the things that I hear a lot is like it's just like anything else that you do in life. If you practice at it, you're eventually gonna get good at it. And like not even just mechanical skill. If you have that like innate ability to like know when cooldowns are off cooldown, and like it eventually becomes ingrained like in the way you play, that you eventually just learn that hero so well, and it all comes with practice almost when you're trying to climb. And yeah, I would definitely agree with that there.
Right.
Also,
Go ahead.
people probably won't like this, but quick play and comp are not practice. Maybe it's practice for learning a hero and improving it as a hero, but it's not going to make you a better player.
Right,
Your
'cause
rank may go up, but you won't be a better player.
What do you
from
mean by
comp.
that? What do you mean by that?
Like those scenes are
So-
completely different.
Activate skirmish.
The- so there's a big difference between competitive and team play. Team play, all 6 people are playing together. In comp, it's mostly 6 people playing for themselves. If
Mhm.
you all have one specific goal, besides gaining SR, like you not only will you play better, but you'll learn new things and you will just improve. Like because if my SR goes from 2700 to 3k, that doesn't mean I'm all of a sudden a 3k level player. My
Mhm.
SR just went up. Like I don't have to learn anything to gain SR.
Yeah.
But if I go from a low masters team to a GM team, obviously I've become a better player and I have earned, the right to call myself a GM level player. If
Yeah.
I'm consistently playing well for this team and I'm playing well against other GM teams.
Mhm.
Because there are plenty of boosted players in comp, and just because their rank, like there's people in 4500, 4600 who like that's top 10, top 20 players. That
Mhm.
doesn't mean they earn that or they deserve to be there. They're just there because they've won comp games.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
like, I've seen plenty of really good plat players, and I've seen plenty of really bad GM players. I don't
Right.
think.
Like even still, like I'll like goof around sometimes in like Diamond or the Plat. And I see some really good support players. And I feel bad for them because it feels like they end up getting stuck down there because they'll like end up like killing with friends because it's like they're just trying to play to win but not trying to improve.
Yeah.
More or less.
Yeah. That
But
makes a lot of sense.
if you want to get better, don't look at comp or quick play or arcade. What you need to do is you need to look for leagues or teams that are recruiting. And you don't have to join that team or join that league, but like you can fill for scrims. Like there are plenty of teams that will do like, hey, looking for fill or looking for sub player. If you play for them, like you'll like get to experience that,
Or
and you'll learn from it.
in lower elos, you can actually 6-stack, which we don't have the benefit of doing.
Yeah, we can
Oh, we do
only
that in
do it.
Masters now. We have to like get on Smurfs.
Yeah.
we won't,
You
we
guys
won't
get
get on
to
that
see
topic. Okay, so I have a few more questions here. A few are serious, a few are funny. But I do have a couple more of the like managerial side of things. So Acid, for you, obviously the one that kind of connected us was Delirium. One of the major things he mentioned to me was the ability that you have to like put comps together and select the right players in those comps and put them in like the proper spots to succeed. And he said like you almost have like this innate ability to like be able to set your team up to win and be able to put the players in the right spots. That being said, what kind of mental process do you go through to select players for roles or select players for maps? And what kind of advice would you give to other managers to help them in this situation?
Well, it's something you learn over time. I don't think I was born, with the ability, but I do think I do have a little bit of natural talent. When when I was younger, I was always like a huge fan of like fantasy drafts and like sports games and stuff.
Hmm.
Always found like I would go through like hours and hours and hours of like simulating, seeing like what players from what team would work better on what. And I
Hmm.
think as I got older, I started playing like FPS games, like, and it translated over to Overwatch. And I think I'm just able to like see like if one player works or if one player doesn't. But it's all about giving them the opportunity. Just because someone's like lower elo than the rest of your team doesn't mean they won't do as well or they won't shine.
Hmm.
Uh, but you also need to know that sometimes rank does matter to a certain point, like
Mhm.
especially at the level that my teams are at. So what I look at is I look at flexibility, experience, and if they're friends or they know anyone else who's currently on my team or has a good standing with me. So like if Dragon Envy or Snake were to be like, hey, my friend is a really, really good player. I think we should give him a shot, because I trust them. Be like, okay, let's see it. Let's give him a tryout. If they work well, they'll get an opportunity on the team. But if they
Mhm.
don't work, then we just forget it. It happened. It's just about, I guess equal opportunity or just looking at like what may work.
Mhm.
Because there are a lot of diamonds in the rough that a lot of people miss just because this person's too low for us. We're all 4,400 team. This guy's only 43. He doesn't belong with us. Like, that's probably why you're failing, because
Yeah.
you're not open,
Mhm.
to
Yeah.
that possibility.
I think the majority of this scene right now say that I'm not very good at auto support because they just have never seen it. I've been a DPS player the whole entire time I've been playing Overwatch,
And
and I don't know. I feel like that is kind of a situation where like you could have people that are better at some roles and they just don't, because I can't play support in comp consistently. Well, now I can on roll queue, but before that, I mean, there's no way that you're like 4,600 player queuing as support solo queue. I mean, it just doesn't work.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
And
I play DPS and I can carry a lot harder comp, but I feel like I can carry harder in scrims on support because I'm actually better at the.
And that's definitely obviously something we see at like lower elo too. Is like, I guess it was probably more before roll queue, but like if I'm gonna join a group and I have like 200 hours on a DPS player, but I only have like 50 hours on a support player, they'd be like, you're not gonna fucking play on support. What are you talking about? Like, you're a DPS player. Like, and it's stuff like that. Like, obviously not that specific situation, but like it's stuff like that that's kind of what you're talking about, is like give everybody an opportunity to show you what they got and see what they can do for you.
Right, because even I have that same issue. It's like people still think I'm a Mercy one trick, but like I haven't made Mercy since like season
you
10.
are a Mercy one trick.
Alright, you know what? No,
Um,
like in comp forms less, I became like a full flex. I just enjoy it more.
yeah.
I feel like I can be more flexible. I can start having fun
But-
again.
You
Whereas
wish you were me.
Dragon is correct about himself, it's kind of like, yeah, you're really good at these other supports, but when you are literally top 3 of all time at this one hero, why would I put you on anything else?
Alright, I'm about to pull up my honest stats. Hold on.
All
They're
right.
terrible.
Before we get into that, Acid, what would you say is the best thing to help a team succeed? If from your standpoint, what's the one thing maybe a manager can look at or do differently to help their team succeed?
Find a good, like, not like an assistant, but like a good captain. My captain is Mad Max, and I rely on him a lot on, what I'm not capable of doing. Like, if I'm
He's
busy,
definitely
he'll
disciplined.
always be there. Yeah, he's kind of useless now, but
Oof.
make sure you have really good leadership. You need a leader on your team.
Mhm.
Like I said with comp, if you don't have a leader, your team will not thrive.
Yeah.
As well as having a leader for your team and also being a leader outside of the games. Like everyone on Fissure knows that I make the calls. Like I decide who plays. You know, I can overturn any decision
Mhm.
anyone else makes, and usually it does go in our favor.
Mhm.
Even then, I'm not perfect. I will make a bad call at times. Like you can't really predict that. That's all hindsight. But you have to trust you have to trust yourself and you have to trust your team. If you're
Mhm.
not trusting your team, it will become very evident and small cracks will start to appear.
Yeah.
As well as knowing who fits with who. It's like if your main tank and your off tank are like best friends, don't split them up. Like
Yeah.
they may not be best individually, but those two together, like you cannot get better synergy than that. Just because someone's better than maybe that off tank doesn't mean he's gonna pair well with that main tank.
Mhm.
Because that's like not like you cannot force synergy. Either it
Yeah.
happens or it doesn't.
Mhm.
So if you notice like, wow, these two work really, really well together, find 4 other people who also mesh with them like they do together. And as that synergy slowly builds up, you'll notice that your team gradually gets better and better. Always look for pieces or figure out teams are like a puzzle. You can't just jam a piece that doesn't fit into the rest of the puzzle. It's not
Mhm.
going to fit and it's not going to look right. So you either want to find new pieces or you want to find where that piece fits and then just mold the rest of the puzzle to fit perfectly with it.
Yeah.
It's like if a player isn't working in one here, try him out somewhere else. Like if say like Snake doesn't work on DPS, but he does work on support, just scrap the DPS part and just keep him on support.
Mhm.
That way we can keep that player in, keep all his benefits and also have him not only play better, but also allow us to pick someone else in who can play just as well as him or maybe better, maybe not quite as good, but that person will fit in enough with the team to where everyone plays,
Mhm.
great.
Yeah. Yeah. That definitely makes a lot of sense there.
I find myself shot calling a lot more. Like before, when I played DPS, it was a lot harder for me to call things and to really maximize my potential in that aspect of like teamwork, working with the whole team. I can't really
Mhm.
do that as much in DPS because I guess it could even be like a personality thing almost
Mhm.
versus
Us, yeah.
like you could be a leader in game, not necessarily like you could be kind of a decision maker, and that doesn't really mesh that well with the DPS role.
It
Yeah.
doesn't at all.
So I prefer off support. I find it more fun, and I can maximize that ability on that role.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Also, don't settle. Just because your team is good or you're beating other teams, don't settle. You always want to get better. If you stagnate and remain the same, other teams are going to get better. So you
Mhm.
won't be on top all the time. If you're like, yeah, we don't have to practice. We don't have to scrim. We're the best. We even lost the game. Yeah, but what happens when you do lose? Then what?
Yeah.
Then everyone tilts.
Oh,
And then
yeah.
your team slowly falls apart. So you all
for anybody
also,
in Talon, I know that too well. No. Go ahead.
but yeah, also it's oh gosh, hold on, I forgot. But yeah, like always practice. And one mistake I made, or one mistake that I've made a lot, as a manager is don't shit talk people. Don't make enemies. It will stunt your team's growth.
Yeah.
If the guy you want on your team is friends with someone that you've egoed or you shit talked or whatever, or that you've gotten kicked off another team, that person is not going to join you. They're not going to like you, and they could potentially get other people to leave your team. So
Yeah.
always, as a manager, always try to be, like either a good person or like a neutral. You don't want to be like an evil, or you don't want to try to make enemies for the fun of it.
I feel like that's true on everyone, though. That's not managers. You could really be true on like every.
It is. That goes to players as well. But
Mhm.
I'm just speaking from experience.
Yeah.
It makes it impossible to recruit people that hate you. Unless they want to win. I've recruited people who hate my guts, but they want to win. So they're like, all right, I'll deal with acid because I want to win. It happens.
Yeah, that's kind of my position.
Yeah, fuck acid.
All right. Well, let's do a couple more fun, lighthearted topics here, and we'll wrap some things up here. So this one's gonna go out to all the players here, all 4 of you. I'm setting up a lobby. It's free for all, and it's the 4 of you who's winning.
Probably
It's
near
Snake.
Yeah.
Shit, if it's Hero Gauntlet, Snake #1 flex.
It'd be a more like tight argument if Meraki or Gunners were here, but because Snake is like easily like the best mechanical player here, I think Snake takes it
I
like
don't
8
know, man.
times
You
out of
sleeping
10.
on the fence.
I don't know. I've been crapping on y'all in fucking in the Hero Gauntlet, so I don't know about that.
That's RNG.
Oh boy. All right. Well, there we go.
All I
And-
know is Dragons losing everyone.
I'm actually
Oh
hurt.
yeah. That's
Have you seen my DPS? My Reaper?
Yeah, you're
I don't know,
3,700 DPS. I'm intimidated.
Alright.
Dragon might do better than
All right, and just another fun question here, maybe to wrap things up here. What do you guys think of Overwatch 2? Let's hear it.
I'm actually excited I love the lore, I love the comics that they do, the little animations they have.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm actually hyped about that.
In conclusion,
It'll
fuck
be
Blizzard
fun.
and Activision. I'm lying.
I'm not playing any of their games ever
PvP
again.
is retroactive. I don't have to. I don't really care about
I think the co-op in this story will be really fun with
Except
friends.
I saw some gameplay and they use some of the same maps. It's kind of like the PvE events. They just kind of recycle a map.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They just turn it in. Yeah, I feel like they're gonna be lazy in
don't
some areas.
Like Blizzard or Activision. I just don't like that.
But
They
yeah, here you
decided to
are.
add Orisa. Fuck that.
That sounds like a you problem.
I'm an Orisa one trick, by the way, so Snake isn't very
I
fond
just
of
don't
me.
like you. I mean, I don't know why you. Have that.
He was the player in question. I got it. Understood. That's really all I had. Anything you want to plug here? If anybody wants to plug anything or anything, where can we find y'all? How can people follow up with
Snake
this?
17734.
This
Oh, no.
Eco W on Twitch. That's my
Who?
plug.
Who are you?
God.
Coach Acid on Twitter? What?
There you go.
Snake ahaha. That's such a
LTS
terrible-
Fantixum.
I need to change that.
Paul
Alright.
Ethan boy.
There it is. All right, go follow all these people and
Follow Dragon Envy on Twitch.
do it.
I stream all our
See 'em,
I'll
right?
stream all our games.
Awesome. So let's we're definitely gonna follow along with a few of your games maybe and see how you guys do. And yeah, that's really all I had. Unless you guys wanna have anything else? Anything else you wanna add real quick at the end here? Nope.
Uh,
Fake.
Alright. Cool. Well, thank you guys so much for coming on. It's been a pleasure talking to all y'all and picking your brain about everything Overwatch. And I look forward to talking to you guys in the future.
Yeah,
it
for
was
sure.
fun. Thanks for having us.
No problem,
Yeah,
guys.
thank you, man.
No problem. Thank you guys. And everybody, I'll see you guys next week. Peace out.
Toodles.
Peace.
See ya.
I hate you, Gabriel.
All right, Snake
Is that your
1734.